are seeing action tonight from a state lawmaker to what we revealed in our sobering problem investigation.
That lawmaker now wants to know which police agencies statewide are arresting sober people for DUIs. Chief Investigator Jeremy Finley joins us live in studio. And Jeremy, why seek out these police departments?
Well, Mari, simply put, we just don't know which police agencies statewide are arresting innocent people for crimes they didn't commit. TBI data that we uncovered shows it's happened to more than 600 people, but even that data stops in 2023. And while that 600 may be alarming to victims, to Republican leadership, they say it shows the system is working. Just a day after we introduced you to Sarah Pence, the latest sober driver to be charged with DUI, causing her to be fired from her job and evicted.
I'm in debt. My life hasn't been the same in many ways.
State Senator Ramesh Akbari is filing legislation trying to determine who is making the mistakes.
When it first came on our radar, we said, we've got to do something about this. I think it's a nightmare. If you've been accused of a crime, especially something like a DUI, and you did not actually commit the offense, having to go through all those changes, potentially losing your job, potentially losing your housing, I mean, it's an awful situation.
The bill would require the TBI each year to report which law enforcement agencies are arresting people for DUIs whose blood work later shows no alcohol or intoxicants. WSMV4 Investigates has asked for that very data, but the TBI hasn't compiled it and therefore isn't required to release it. All they've determined is that more than 600 sober people have been arrested in the state for DUI in the last 7 years.
We have to know the scope before we can know a solution.
But Akbari is in the Democratic minority. Tennessee's legislature has a Republican supermajority. So I took drivers' concerns to House leadership. More than 600 Tennesseans have been arrested for crimes that they didn't commit. These drivers are now looking to lawmakers to do something about it. What do you think you should do?
Well, I think what you do is you look at the overall number. My understanding is the 600 makes up less than 0.5%. When you do the field sobriety test, sometimes maybe it's right, maybe it's not. It looks like 99.5% of the time it is accurate.
These drivers will say it has ruined their lives. If this was any other crime, would this get more lawmaker attention?
Jeremy, we do look at all those crimes. And what I can tell you is the numbers that you've brought, I mean, you got 600 and something drivers. So what you've revealed, and I think this is good, is that the system that we have works.
Works, according to House leadership, because in the vast majority of cases, those arrested for DUI were impaired. But tell that to the people who have lost jobs, money, credibility, even temporary custody of their children for being wrongfully arrested for DUI.
And we're going to continue to make sure that the TBI is testing that blood properly, that the officers are properly trained so that they're not arresting innocent people. You never want anyone that's innocent to be arrested, obviously.
Interesting here, Jeremy. Even if the senator's bill becomes law, would it be retroactive to past years or just from this point forward?
Well, Morris, after my interview today, Senator Akbari said that she would like to know who made past wrongful arrests, and she's now going to consider asking the TBI for that data. But the bill as written would only ask for the data starting this year. She says that would be able to tell them which agencies are making the wrongful arrests by next session so they can then introduce legislation based on that data. Morris?
All right, Jeremy, more to be done, and I'm sure you're all over it.
Sure.
Thank you.